The rain poured down over the ruined colony city, cold water running through broken streets and empty alleys. Among the shadows of the night, a small figure stumbled forward, her thin arms shaking as she searched the ground. She was an alien girl, no older than 10, with pale skin marked by hunger and eyes filled with fear. Her clothes were torn, her feet bare, and her stomach ached with a pain that had lasted for days. She had not eaten, not since yesterday, not since the scraps from the trash pile had been taken by stronger hands. Tonight she had found something, a piece of old bread lying near a pile of waste. It was dirty, hard, but food was food, and her shaking hands reached for it, but then a low growl rose from the corner of the alley. From the darkness came a stray dog, its ribs showing under its skin, its teeth sharp and hungry. The girl froze. Clutching the bread close to her chest, the dog stepped closer, growling louder. Its eyes fixed on her only treasure. She backed away, her small body pressed against the wall. But hunger and desperation made her stand her ground. The dog lunged, she cried out and tried to push it away. Her thin arms were no match for the animal's strength. Teeth snapped near her face, claws scratched her arm, and she screamed in pain. The bread fell to the ground, the dog snapped it up, tearing it apart in seconds. Her blood mixed with the rain. Dripping down onto the stones, she fell to her knees, holding her wounded arm, gasping for breath. Tears mixed with the water on her cheeks, her chest rising and falling in fear. The dog, satisfied, growled once more before disappearing into the darkness. The girl was left alone, shaking, weak and bleeding. The night seemed colder now, and she felt the heavy weight of despair. She whispered to herself, a broken sound that was almost a prayer. Please, someone help me. But no one had ever helped before. People walked past her on the streets, ignoring her small figure. To them, she was nothing, less than nothing. A burden in a city already broken. Then she heard it. Footsteps in the rain. Slow and steady. She froze, pressing her back against the wall, her heart racing. Maybe it was another patrol. Maybe it was someone worse than the dog. Her breath caught in her throat. She dared not move. The sound grew closer, echoing through the narrow alley. A tall shadow appeared at the corner, a figure stepping into the faint glow of a broken streetlight. It was a human, broad-shouldered, with a coat hanging heavy from the rain. His face was hidden under the hood, but she could feel his eyes on her. The girl gasped and tried to crawl backward, though her wound made her weak. Her small body trembled as she whispered, "Don't hurt me. Please." The human said nothing. He stood still, watching her for a long moment. Rain dripped from his coat, his boots splashing in the puddles as he stepped closer. The girl flinched, covering her head with her good arm, expecting a blow, but instead the man crouched down in front of her. His voice low, steady. "You're hurt," he said. Words simple but filled with weight. Her wide eyes looked at him, confused. Why would a human speak with such calm? With no anger, no threat, she did not answer. Only clutched her arm tighter, the blood still running. The man's hand reached to his pocket, slowly pulling out a strip of cloth. He tore it with his teeth, making it into a bandage. The girl stared, too shocked to move. As he took her arm gently, his touch was firm but careful. As if she were fragile glass, she whimpered at the pain. But he said softly, "Hold still, it will help." He wrapped the cloth around her wound. Tying it tight, the bleeding slowed and warmth spread through her heart. For the first time, someone had seen her, not as trash, not as a burden, but as a life worth saving. The man sat back watching her, his face unreadable under the rain. The girl looked down, whispering with a trembling voice, Why would you help me?" The man did not answer yet, only pulled out a small piece of food from his coat, bread cleaner than what she had fought for. He held it out to her, his hand steady, waiting. Her stomach growled, her heart ached, but fear held her back. What if this was a trick? What if he wanted something in return? She stared at him and he simply nodded. "Eat," he said, nothing more. Her hands shook as she reached for the bread. Taking it slowly, she bit into it, tears falling again. But this time not only from pain. In that broken alley under the cold rain, something had changed. The girl had fought for food and lost, but a stranger had given her more than scraps. He had given her kindness, bandaged her wound, fed her hunger. And though she did not know his name in that moment, she felt a spark of hope for the first time in her life. The man stood, his shadow tall and strong against the broken light. "Come," he said, his voice low, steady. The girl looked at him, afraid but drawn to the warmth of his presence. Her hand clutched the bread, her arm still bleeding beneath the cloth. She hesitated, trembling, before pushing herself to her feet, and as she followed the stranger into the night, the rain washed away her fear. But the suspense remained. Was he truly her savior or something else waiting in the dark? The alley was quiet after the rain, the sound of dripping water echoing from broken pipes and gutters. The girl walked slowly, her small legs weak, following the human who had saved her. She clutched the bread in her hand as if it were treasure. Afraid it might vanish, her wound stung with every step. But the cloth he tied around it stopped the bleeding. She looked up at him from time to time, her wide eyes full of confusion and fear. The man did not speak much, he only moved forward, his heavy coat dripping water. His silence was not cruel, it was heavy, filled with thought. At last, he led her into a small shelter hidden behind a half-collapsed wall. It was nothing more than a room with broken bricks and a roof patched with sheets of metal. But inside, it was dry, and there was a faint glow of fire in a corner. The warmth hit her skin, and for the first time in days she stopped shivering. The man dropped his pack on the ground, then crouched beside the fire. He added a few small pieces of wood and breathed on the flames until they grew brighter. The girl stayed near the door, her thin body pressed against the wall. Her eyes studied him carefully, like a small animal unsure if it was safe to stay. He did not force her, he only spoke quietly. "Sit. You are cold." His voice was calm, steady, without threat. She hesitated, then walked slowly closer to the fire. The heat touched her face, and she hugged the bread tighter to her chest. Her stomach growled again, loud enough that she lowered her head in shame. The man noticed, and he pulled out another piece of food from his pack. It was not much, some dried meat and a small flask of water, but he placed them near her, not pushing, only waiting. Her hands shook as she reached forward. Her large eyes never leaving his, she ate quickly, like a creature afraid someone might take it away. Tears ran down her cheeks as she swallowed. It had been so long since her body felt warmth and food together. She whispered softly, almost afraid of her own voice, Why are you helping me?" The man looked at her, his face hidden under the shadow of the hood. For a moment silence stretched, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Then he said, "Because you are hurt, because you are alone." The girl's chest tightened, her small hands clutching the bread harder. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Her people had turned away. Humans had turned away, to both sides. She was a burden, but to him she was someone worth saving. The firelight revealed more of his face now. Sharp lines, tired eyes. She noticed scars on his hands, deep old marks that told of fights and survival. He was not rich, he was not powerful, but he carried strength and weight in silence. Her voice shook as she asked, "Will you leave me tomorrow?" He did not answer right away. Instead, he handed her the flask of water. She drank, the cool liquid running down her throat, making her sigh in relief. When she handed it back, his eyes met hers. "I do not leave people to die," he said simply. The words struck her like lightning, breaking the walls she had built inside. Her eyes filled with tears again, and she turned away. Hiding her face, the man sat back, pulling his coat tighter. His gaze went to the fire, but his mind was far away. He wondered who she was, where she came from, what had happened to her family. But he did not push her. He knew wounds of the heart took longer to heal than wounds of flesh. The girl, though silent, felt something she had forgotten. Safety. Minutes passed, the fire warmed the small space. The girl's eyelids grew heavy, her body sinking against the rough wall. The man noticed her struggling to stay awake. "Rest," he said. "You are safe here." She shook her head weakly, as if afraid sleep might take away the food and warmth. But the exhaustion was stronger, her small body gave in. Her hand still clutched the bread pressed against her chest. She curled up near the fire, her breathing slowing. The man watched, silent, his scarred hand resting near his knife. Guarding the room outside, the city was filled with danger. But inside this broken shelter, there was peace as the fire burned lower. The man finally let out a slow breath. He did not know why he had stopped for her, why he had risked time and food. But as he looked at her fragile frame resting in the flickering light, he understood. There was something in her eyes, something he had seen before in himself. The same hunger, the same loneliness. The same fight to live, he whispered to himself, his voice almost lost in the crackle of the fire. No one should fight the world alone. The girl stirred slightly, curling tighter, her face soft in sleep. The man leaned back against the wall, eyes on the door, and in that silence, He made an unspoken promise. Tomorrow, when the world came again with its hunger and cruelty, he would not let it take her, for tonight she had food, warmth and safety for tonight. She was not alone, and that was enough to begin. The night stretched long, the rain outside finally slowing into a quiet drizzle. The fire burned low in the corner of the shelter, filling the room with a soft orange glow. The alien girl stirred in her sleep, her small body curled close to the warmth. The human watched her silently, his scarred hands resting on his knees. He had promised nothing aloud, yet his heart carried a weight heavier than words. When morning came, the girl opened her eyes slowly. The first thing she saw was the steady flame and the man sitting near it. For a moment she thought it had been a dream, but the bandage on her arm reminded her it was real. She sat up quickly, clutching the bread she still held tight against her chest. The man noticed her waking, his voice calm. "You are safe." She blinked, her throat dry, unsure if she could believe him. Her life had been filled with broken promises and empty hands. Still, his presence felt different, strong, but not harsh. She whispered softly, "Why do you watch me?" He answered simply, "Because the world outside will not." The girl lowered her eyes, hugging her knees close. Her body trembled with both hunger and fear, but the warmth of the fire and the smell of food eased her spirit. The man pulled a small tin from his pack, setting it near the flames. Steam soon rose, carrying the faint scent of soup. The girl's nose twitched, her eyes following every movement. She did not speak, only watched as he stirred the tin with a piece of wood. Finally, he set it down, sliding it toward her. "Eat slowly," he said. "Your stomach is weak." She hesitated, then took a careful sip. The warmth spread through her, making her chest ache with relief. She ate quickly after that, though she tried to obey his words. The human gave a small nod, as if satisfied to see her strength returning. When she finished, she licked her lips and whispered, "Thank you." The man leaned back, his eyes on the fire. For a long time they sat in silence, the crackle of flames their only sound. But slowly, the girl's fear began to fade, replaced by curiosity. She studied his face, the tired eyes, the sharp jaw, the lines of pain written deep into his skin. She wanted to know who he was, why he carried scars like old stories. At last she asked, "Where do you come from?" The man did not look at her. His gaze stayed on the fire. "Far," he said, voice quiet. "I was a soldier once." The girl tilted her head, not understanding fully. "A soldier," she repeated, the word strange in her mouth. "Yes," he said. "I fought in battles that no one remembers now." He lifted his hand, showing her the scars across his knuckles. "These are not medals, they are reminders." The girl stared, wide-eyed, then touched her own bandaged arm. Her voice was small. "So you know pain too?" The man gave a faint smile, though it was tired and heavy. "Yes," he said, "pain teaches, but it does not have to break us." The girl thought about this, her eyes shining in the firelight. She wanted to tell him her story too, but her voice trembled. "My family. They were taken," she whispered at last. The man turned his eyes toward her, listening. She held her knees tighter, as if protecting herself from memory. "They came in the night, patrols. They said we had no right to be here. My mother tried to fight them, but they struck her. My father was dragged away and I ran." Her words broke into sobs, her shoulders shaking. The man did not move closer. He let her speak. Sometimes silence was stronger than comfort. When her crying slowed, he said softly, "You are not weak for surviving." The girl lifted her eyes to him, unsure how to answer. "You fought a dog for bread," he continued, "and still you live." His voice was steady, carrying no pity, only truth. The girl swallowed hard, her heart aching at his words. She had always believed she was worthless, but he spoke as if she mattered, as if her survival meant something. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, whispering, "Do you think my parents are still alive?" The man's jaw tightened. He did not want to give her false hope. but he saw the desperate fire in her gaze. "I do not know," he said, "but if they are, we will find them." The girl's breath caught, her chest filled with both fear and hope. The fire flickered, casting shadows on the walls. In that fragile space between fear and trust, something was forming. Not just survival, but a bond. The girl moved closer to the fire, her small figure sitting near him. She did not touch him, but the distance between them grew smaller. The man glanced at her, then at the flames. "You should rest again," he said. "Tomorrow will be harder." The girl nodded slowly, though sleep did not come easily. Her mind was full of memories and questions. But one thought stayed stronger than the rest. She was not alone anymore. For the first time since her family had been taken, she had someone. And though she did not yet know what tomorrow would bring, she knew that tonight, in this broken shelter with the fire between them, she had found a place where hope could grow again. The morning sun rose weakly over the ruined colony, its light hidden behind thick gray clouds. The girl woke to the sound of distant voices echoing through the broken streets. Her heart tightened. The sound was not human. It was harsh and sharp, the language of the patrols. She crawled closer to the fire, whispering in fear, "They are near." The man stood slowly, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. He moved to the doorway of the shelter, lifting his hood to shadow his face. From the crack in the wall, the girl saw them too. 3 armored figures, alien patrol soldiers, walking through the street with rifles on their backs. Their boots splashed through puddles, their glowing eyes scanning every corner. The girl clutched the edge of her bandaged arm, trembling. "They are looking for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. The man glanced at her, his jaw set tight. "Why?" he asked softly. "Run away," she said. "Children like me are not allowed to wander. They take us away." Her body shivered, her memories clawing at her heart. The man turned back to the patrols, his face hidden in shadow. He knew the danger. If they found her here, both of them would suffer. The patrols stopped in front of a burned-out building, their voices low but urgent. One of them held a picture in his hand. Showing it to the others, the girl gasped. "That is me." The man looked at her, his voice low but firm. "Quiet now." She covered her mouth with her small hand, tears filling her eyes. The patrol split up, 2 moving down the street, 1 scanning the alleyways. The sound of metal boots drew closer, echoing louder with each step. The girl pressed herself against the wall, her small frame shaking. The man moved back inside, his movement steady. "Under," he said, pointing to the broken floorboards near the fire. She crawled quickly, lifting the wood with her trembling hands. Beneath was a narrow gap, dark and cramped. Just enough for her to hide, she slid inside. Clutching the bread she had saved, her breath coming fast, the man lowered the boards gently, covering her completely. Only a faint sliver of light reached her eyes, enough to see his boots near the fire. Her heart raced as the sound of the patrol's heavy steps entered the alley. The shadow of the armored figure stretched across the doorway. Then came the knock, sharp and demanding. The man did not move right away. He let silence hang heavy. The patrol banged again, the sound shaking the weak walls. Finally, the man opened the door halfway, his hood pulled low. "Human," the alien soldier growled, voice deep and mechanical. The man's voice was even. "What do you want?" "We search," the soldier said. Shoving a paper forward, on it was the image of the girl, her frightened eyes captured in cruel detail. "Have you seen this one?" the patrol demanded. The man looked at the paper, his face calm, his heartbeat steady. He shook his head once. "No, I have not." The soldier's eyes glowed brighter, scanning him from head to toe. "You live alone?" the alien asked, voice filled with suspicion. "Yes," the man said simply. "Alone." The girl under the floorboards pressed her hand against her mouth, praying he would not hear her breath. Every second felt like a blade pressed against her skin. The patrol pushed past him, stepping inside the shelter. The girl's body froze as heavy boots thudded above her hiding place. The alien scanned the room, his gaze lingering on the fire. The broken walls, the pack on the floor. "Nothing," he muttered, though his voice was not convinced. The man's hand rested near his knife, hidden by his coat. At last, the soldier turned and stepped out into the alley again. "We will search the next block," he said to the others. The patrol moved away, their boots echoing until the sound faded. The girl's chest ached as she struggled not to cry out. Then the boards above her lifted, and the man's face appeared. "It is over," he said softly, helping her out. She stumbled into the light, her body shaking. They will keep searching," she whispered, her voice full of despair. The man placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Then we stay ahead of them," he said firmly. She looked at him with wide, desperate eyes. "Why would you risk this for me?" she asked, her voice almost breaking. His gaze met hers, calm and heavy with meaning. "Because no one else will," he answered. Her chest tightened at his words, her heart pounding with both fear and gratitude. The fire flickered lower as silence returned. The girl sat close to him now, her small frame leaning toward his strength. She did not speak again. But in her heart she knew one truth. If she had been alone, she would already be gone, taken by the patrols. But with him she had a chance, a fragile hope. And as the rain began again outside, the whispers of the patrol still echoing through the streets, she held on to that hope like she once held scraps of bread. Clutching it with all her strength, praying it would not be taken away, the man sat beside her, silent but unshaken. And in that broken shelter, a bond stronger than fear was being forged. The city was restless, its broken streets filled with whispers of patrols searching every block. By evening the rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and damp. The man sat near the fading fire, sharpening his knife with slow, steady strokes. The girl sat beside him, her knees pulled to her chest, her eyes wide with fear. She could hear voices outside, rough commands echoing between the ruins. "They are closer," she whispered. Her breath trembling, the man nodded, his expression calm but firm. "They will search every home, every shelter," he said. "We must be ready." Her heart pounded, her hands clutched the bandage on her arm. She felt small and powerless, but his steady voice gave her courage. Moments later, heavy boots echoed down the alley. Shadows stretched across the cracked walls as armored figures approached. The girl's breath caught in her throat, tears burning her eyes. The man stood quickly, lifting the floorboards again. "Hide," he ordered softly, his tone leaving no room for doubt. She slid beneath the wooden planks, the space cold and narrow, the darkness wrapped around her, and she clutched the last piece of bread against her chest. Above, she could see the faint outline of his boots, firm and steady. Her small body trembled, but she forced herself to stay silent. Every sound outside grew louder. The voices, the clank of armor, the thud of steps. A sharp knock rattled the door louder than before. "Open!" A voice growled, metallic and cruel. The man opened it slowly, his hood pulled low over his face. 3 soldiers stood there, weapons gleaming, their glowing eyes scanning him. One shoved the paper forward again, the image of the girl displayed. "You," the patrol leader barked. "Have you seen this child?" The man studied the paper, his voice calm. "No." The soldier's gaze narrowed, his tone suspicious. "We were told she was seen nearby." The man shrugged lightly. "Then your eyes lie." The girl beneath the floorboards pressed her fist against her mouth, fighting the urge to cry. The patrol pushed inside without waiting for permission. Their boots slammed against the floor, shaking the boards above her head. One soldier kicked the pack in the corner. Spilling its contents, another scanned the fire pit, his hand brushing the warm ashes. "Someone has been here," he growled. "Not just you." The man's hand tightened around the knife hidden under his coat, but he kept his voice steady. "I keep to myself." "Why burn extra wood then?" the soldier demanded, his eyes glowing brighter. "For warmth," the man replied. "Or would you rather I freeze?" The soldier grunted but did not answer. The third soldier began pacing, his boots creaking against the floorboards. The girl held her breath, every step above her chest like a hammer. Her heart raced so fast she feared they would hear it. The soldier paused, crouching, tapping the wood with his clawed fingers. The sound echoed through her hiding place, cold and sharp. For a moment silence fell, the soldier listening. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, praying, begging silently. Then the man spoke, his voice calm but edged with steel. "If you are done stomping my floor, leave." The soldier stood slowly, eyes burning into him. "Careful, human," he hissed. "You speak too boldly?" The man tilted his head, his hood shadowing his face. "I speak because I have nothing to hide," he replied. The leader barked an order, and the soldiers finally moved back toward the door, but their eyes lingered, suspicious and untrusting at the threshold. The leader turned, his voice cold. "If we find you sheltering one of them, you will beg for death." The man gave no reply, only closed the door slowly. The heavy footsteps faded into the night. Leaving silence behind, the girl stayed frozen, afraid to move. Until the boards lifted. "It is safe," the man said, his voice softer now. She crawled out, her face pale, her body shaking. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered. "They almost found me." The man crouched, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "They did not," he said firmly, "because I will not let them." Her eyes searched his, desperate and trembling. "Why risk so much?" she asked, her voice breaking. His gaze held hers, strong and unshaken. "Because life is worth more than fear," he said simply. The words sank deep into her heart. Leaving her speechless, she leaned into him then, her small frame pressed against his coat. Her tears soaked the fabric, but he did not move away. His scarred hand rested lightly on her back. Outside, the city was crawling with danger, but in that shelter she felt safe for the first time. She believed someone would fight for her. As the fire burned low and the night deepened, the girl whispered softly, "If they come again, will you still protect me?" The man answered without hesitation, "Yes." Her heart tightened at his words. Hope blooming where despair had lived, and though fear still lingered, she clung to that promise with all her strength. The searchers had come, but they had left empty-handed, and in the silence that followed, the bond between human and alien child grew stronger. A bond forged not in comfort, but in the face of danger. The girl closed her eyes, leaning against him, and the man sat watch, silent and ready, knowing the real fight was still to come. The night passed heavy with silence, the girl sleeping lightly while the man stayed awake. Every sound outside made his hand move to the knife by his side. He knew the patrols would not stop. They had her image, they had their orders. Sooner or later they would return, and next time they might not leave so easily. The fire burned low and his eyes stayed sharp. When dawn broke, the girl stirred awake, her small hands rubbing her tired eyes. She saw him still sitting there watching the door, her chest filled with both relief and guilt. "You didn't sleep," she whispered softly. The man shook his head once. "I could not afford to." The girl hugged her knees, her voice trembling. "They will come again." "Won't they?" "Yes," he answered, his tone calm. "They will keep searching." Her eyes filled with fear. "Then you must leave me," she said. "If they find me here, they will kill you." The words broke in her throat, heavy with sorrow. The man looked at her, his expression steady. "I will not leave you," he said. "Not to them." Her heart raced, torn between hope and despair. "But why?" she asked, her voice almost a plea. He lowered his gaze to the fire, the flames reflecting in his eyes. "Because once," he said slowly, "I lost someone too." The girl tilted her head, her breath catching. The man's voice grew quieter, but each word heavy with memory. "I had a family long ago, before the wars. Before the colony fell." His hand tightened around his knee. His jaw set hard. "They were taken," he continued. "Not by patrols, but by men who thought power mattered more than life." The girl watched him, wide-eyed, every word burning into her. "I fought, I tried, but I could not save them," he said. For the first time, his voice cracked. A shadow crossing his face, silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of his slow breath. The girl's throat tightened and she whispered, "I'm sorry." The man gave a faint shake of his head. "Do not be." He turned his eyes to her, his gaze firm again. "You remind me of them, not in blood but in spirit. In the will to live even when the world wants you gone." Her chest ached, her small hands clutching the bandaged arm tighter. He leaned closer, his voice low. "You must choose now." The girl blinked, confused. "Choose what? Do you want to keep hiding? Always waiting for the sound of their boots?" he asked. "Or do you want to fight for something more? To find those you lost?" Her breath caught in her chest, her eyes wide with both fear and longing. "My family," she whispered, her voice breaking. The man nodded. "Yes, your family. Maybe they are still alive, maybe not. But we cannot know unless we try." Tears blurred her vision, hope and terror colliding inside her. "You would help me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I would," he said. "But it is your choice." The fire flickered, shadows dancing on the walls. The girl stared into the flames, her small hands shaking. She thought of her mother's voice, her father's smile. She thought of the night they were taken, of the screams, of the silence that followed. Her tears fell, but she raised her head, her voice steady. I want to find them, she said. I want to try. The man nodded slowly, the faintest trace of a smile on his face. Then that is what we will do, he replied. Her chest tightened, both fear and courage burning together. She whispered softly, almost to herself, You are my protector. The words struck him deeper than he expected. For a moment he felt the weight of her trust settle heavy on his shoulders, but he did not turn away from it. He accepted it. The girl moved closer, sitting by his side, her small hand brushing against his coat. Her eyes still glistened with tears, but they also carried a light he had not seen before. The day grew brighter, the sounds of patrols faint in the distance. The man began packing his things, his knife, the last of his food, the strips of cloth. The girl watched him, her chest full of both dread and determination. Will it be dangerous? She asked quietly. Yes, he said honestly. But danger is better than chains. She nodded, holding her breath, trying to be brave. When he lifted his pack onto his back, he extended his hand to her. Her small fingers slid into his rough, scarred palm. The touch was fragile, but it carried the weight of promise. He squeezed gently, steady and strong. Together they stepped out of the broken shelter into the ruined streets. The city stretched before them, filled with shadows and danger, but also filled with the possibility of something more. The girl clutched his hand tighter. Her fear mixing with courage, the man walked forward, his eyes sharp, his resolve unshaken. They had made their choice, no more hiding, no more waiting for the sound of boots. Now they would fight, they would search, they would endure. And though the path ahead was uncertain, one truth was clear. Neither of them would face it alone. The streets were wet and silent as the man and the girl stepped into the morning light. The ruins of the colony stretched before them, broken walls and scattered rubble telling stories of battles long past. Every corner carried danger, every shadow carried eyes, yet they walked forward. Her small hand stayed in his. Her grip tight and desperate, his steps were firm, carrying both of them into an uncertain path. The girl's heart raced with fear, but also with something new, hope. She whispered softly, Where will we go? The man's eyes swept across the empty road, scanning for danger. To the edge of the city first, he answered, then beyond. Where the patrols are weaker. Her chest rose with a shaky breath, courage fighting her trembling. The journey through the streets was slow. Careful. The man led her through back alleys, past burned-out homes, past walls painted with warnings. Sometimes they hid in the shadows as patrols marched by, their glowing eyes scanning the ruins. The girl pressed against his side, clutching his coat whenever danger passed. Each time he waited, silent and steady. Before moving forward again, by noon, they reached the broken marketplace. Stalls lay empty, wood shattered, fabric torn. But in the ruins there was life. A few scattered people moved quietly, humans and aliens alike. Eyes followed them, suspicion heavy in every glance. The girl lowered her head, afraid of being seen. The man's voice was low. Stay close. Do not answer anyone. She nodded quickly, holding his hand tighter. They passed through the ruins until they found a narrow passage leading outside the market. But before they could cross, a shout rang out. Stop! A voice barked, cold and sharp. 2 patrol soldiers stepped forward. Weapons raised, the girl's body froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The man placed himself in front of her, his hand resting on his knife. What do you want? He asked, his tone calm but edged with warning. The soldiers raised the paper again, the girl's image staring back at her. This child, the soldier growled, she is marked. She belongs to us. The girl's heart pounded, tears burning her eyes. The man's jaw tightened, his voice low. She belongs to no one. Before the soldiers could react, he moved, swift as lightning. His knife flashed, knocking one weapon aside, his other hand shoving the soldier back. The girl screamed, covering her ears as the clash erupted. The man fought with strength born of survival, every scar on his body fueling his strikes. The soldiers struck back hard, their armored fists slamming into him. But he stood firm, pushing them away from her. With a final blow, he sent one crashing into a wall, the other stumbling back. The girl reached for him, fear shaking her voice. Please don't die. He gritted his teeth, standing tall, blood dripping from his lip. I will not, he said, his eyes burning with fire. The soldiers cursed, retreating as others began to gather. For now, the man and girl were left standing, battered but unbroken. He turned to her, kneeling to meet her eyes. You see, he said softly, they cannot take you while I breathe. Her tears fell freely and she threw her arms around him. For the first time, she believed the words. He was not just a protector, he was her family now. They left the market quickly, slipping through narrow paths until the patrol's voices faded. At last, they reached the edge of the colony where the land opened wide. Fields of tall grass stretched toward the horizon, broken only by distant hills. The girl's eyes widened, wonder softening her fear. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice full of awe. The man nodded, his gaze scanning the horizon. "Beyond those hills is a place where humans and aliens live together. Away from patrols," he said. Her heart lifted at his words, a new spark of hope blooming inside her. She clutched his hand tightly, whispering, "Can we go there?" "Yes," he replied. "We will start again there." The journey would still be long, filled with danger, but for the first time, the girl felt her chest light with belief. She was not just surviving anymore, she was walking toward something new. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Thank you." The man gave a faint smile, rare but real. "You are welcome." As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the ruined world, they walked together toward the horizon, their shadows stretching long. The girl held on to him not as a stranger, but as the one who had given her life back. The man carried the weight of his scars, but also the light of a promise, and in that moment, a new chapter began. For the girl, it was the first time she was not hungry, not hunted, not alone. For the man, it was the first time in years he felt more than survival. Together they stepped into tomorrow, fragile but unbroken, the ruined colony behind them, a new beginning ahead, and with every step, their bond grew stronger than fear, stronger than loss, stronger than the world itself.